Today's coding challenge is centered on formatting strings. And so the idea is, let's say you get a list of all your employees out of your database, and you want to return a list of their names in good English, right? Human readable format. So when you pull information out of the database and send that to your front end of your application, generally you end up with an array of information, and each item in the array is going to be an object that is equal to the information from the database. So in this case, this would be an employee. Each of these objects would be an employee. And inside of there, you'd have information like their name, their job title, their pay rate, all kinds of stuff, really. But in this case, we're just focusing on the name of each employee. So basically, we want to get this list of people and then return a formatted string that looks like this, where each name is separated by a comma. Up until the last two, we're just going to use an ampersand to separate them. And because of that, if there's only two names, we'll separate them just with an ampersand. If there's just one name, we return just the one name. And if we get no information back, we'll return just a blank string. So there's a couple edge cases here we need to watch out for. So let's take a look at how to do that. So I'm going to do the edge cases first. If the length is 0, that means that we got nothing back from, or no input in the function, right? And in this example, I'm assuming that we're getting this information from a database, but really you could use this for anything. So if we get nothing back, or nothing passed in the array, we're going to return a blank string. If the array.length is 1, that means there's just the one name. So we'll just return array0.name. And then otherwise, we want to go through this array one by one. We want to take the name out of that object and add it to, I'm going to have a string, right? I'm going to start with a string, and then as I go through the array for each item, I'm just going to add it onto the string, and I'm going to separate them by commas. So the result will be, we're just going to start it with array0.name, and then I can start at I equals 1. So I'm going to go through the whole array, but I'm going to start at index 1 because index 0, I've already grabbed the name right here. So as I go through this, I want to add on to result a comma and array at I.name. Now the only issue here is that this last one, when we get to the very last the last index of the array, we don't want to separate it by a comma. We want to separate it by an ampersand. So there's a couple ways you could approach that. You could just do array.length -1, and then after the for loop, you could, add an ampersand in the last index of the array. I want to explore a different method here. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to create a variable. And instead of using or hard coding in the comma here, I'm going to do the variable. So I'm going to add in the separator and the name as I go through the array. And I want to use a comma on every single index except the last one. So I'm going to create this variable using a ternary operator. So if I is equal to array.length -1, which is the last item in the array, then I'm going to use an ampersand. Otherwise, I'm going to use a comma. So the very last index will be separated by an ampersand. All the other indexes will be separated by a comma. So when this for loop is done, we should have a formatted result. So let's take a look. I have a few things ready to go here, a few test cases. So if we get an empty array in, we get the blank string. And that's what we want. If we just get one name, we should just return that name. There it is. If we get two names, we have just the two names separated by an ampersand. And then as many names as you want, it'll separate them each by a comma with an ampersand at the end. So I hope you liked that video. I hope you liked the explanations. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section below. Go ahead and like or subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.